For years, the tech industry had one defining advantage. Growth felt almost unlimited. New users, new markets, new products. It seemed like every major tech company was expanding at a pace that was hard to slow down. Platforms scaled globally, software spread rapidly, and entire industries were disrupted in a matter of years. But in 2026, something has clearly changed. Growth in tech isn't disappearing, but it's getting much harder to find. And for many companies, that's becoming the central challenge. Because the easy growth is already gone. To understand why, you have to start with market saturation. Most major tech platforms have already reached a large portion of their potential audience. Smartphones are everywhere. Social media penetration is high. Cloud adoption is widespread. Streaming services are mature. There are still new users coming in, but not at the explosive rate seen in the past. So instead of adding millions of new users quickly, companies are competing for the same users. And that changes the game. Growth is no longer about expansion, it's about competition. Another major factor is user fatigue. People are already using multiple apps, services, and platforms every day. Their time is limited. Their attention is stretched. So, convincing someone to adopt yet another app or service is harder than it used to be. It's not just about building something new, it's about replacing something that already exists. And that's a much higher barrier. There's also the issue of diminishing returns. In the early stages, growth comes quickly. You capture early adopters. You expand into obvious markets. You scale the most valuable features. But over time, the remaining opportunities become smaller and harder to capture. Each new user is more expensive to acquire. Each new market is more complex to enter. Each improvement delivers less impact than before. So growth slows down, not because the company is failing, but because it has already captured the easiest wins. Another important shift is in monetization. In the past, many tech companies focused on user growth first and revenue later. The idea was simple: grow the user base and the money will follow. But in 2026, that approach is under pressure. Investors are demanding profitability. Margins matter. Efficiency matters. So companies can't just grow users at any cost. They have to grow in a way that generates real value, and that makes growth harder. Because it limits how aggressively companies can spend to acquire users. There's also a structural change in competition. In many areas of tech, the dominant players are already established. Big platforms have strong ecosystems, massive resources, and deep integration into users' lives. That makes it difficult for new entrants to break through, and it makes it harder for existing companies to expand into adjacent spaces. Because every move is contested, every opportunity is crowded, and in crowded markets, growth slows. Another factor is regulation. Tech companies are facing increasing scrutiny around data, privacy, competition, and market power. New rules can limit how companies operate. They can restrict data usage. They can slow down expansion into new markets. And they can increase compliance costs. All of this adds friction, and friction slows growth. There's also a cost problem that's becoming more visible. Building and running tech products is no longer as cheap as it once was. Infrastructure costs are rising. Cloud services, data storage, and computing power all add up. And with the rise of AI, those costs are increasing even further. Training models, running inference, maintaining systems, it's expensive. So even when companies grow, the cost of supporting that growth is higher, which reduces the overall benefit. Another subtle but important shift is in innovation itself. In the past, new technologies created entirely new categories: social media, mobile apps, cloud computing. Each wave opened up massive new growth opportunities. But today, many innovations are incremental: better features, improved performance, smarter systems. These are important, but they don't always create entirely new markets. So instead of unlocking huge new growth areas, they improve existing ones. And that leads to slower expansion. There's also a behavioral shift among consumers. People are becoming more selective. They're more aware of how they use technology. They're managing screen time. They're choosing which services to pay for. And they're less willing to adopt everything that's new. So even when new products are launched, adoption can be slower. because users are more deliberate. Another challenge is retention. In a saturated market, keeping users becomes just as important as acquiring them. But retention is difficult. There are always alternatives, new features from competitors, better pricing, different experiences, so companies have to invest more just to maintain their existing base, and that reduces the resources available for expansion. There's also a strategic shift happening inside tech companies. Instead of chasing rapid growth, many are focusing on efficiency, improving margins, reducing costs, optimizing operations. And while this makes them stronger financially, it can also slow down growth initiatives because fewer resources are being allocated to aggressive expansion. Interestingly, this doesn't mean opportunities don't exist. They do, but they're more complex, more competitive, and harder to execute. Growth is still possible, but it requires deeper strategy, better execution, and more patience. It's no longer about simply building something new and scaling it quickly. It's about finding gaps, creating differentiation, and delivering real value in a crowded market. So what we're seeing in 2026 is not the end of tech growth, it's the end of easy tech growth. The era where expansion felt automatic is fading. In its place is a more mature, more competitive environment, one where growth has to be earned, where every new user matters more, where every decision carries more weight, and where success is not just about moving fast, but about moving smart. Because in today's tech landscape, growth is still there. It's just harder to reach, and that's what makes it valuable.